this field of UI design is more than 30, 40 years old. And we've gone through a lot of different trends and phases and styles. It has a lot of influence from graphic design. So maybe it started there. Maybe this is a field that kind of came out of that. But in reality, we've been designing for as long as we've been human. Everything that people make, every object, everything in this room was designed by someone. Because all design are the decisions that are behind creation. Whenever you make something, you're putting some opinion into what you're making. If I'm gonna make a chair, I'm gonna decide, well, it's gonna be green, it's gonna have these holes in it, it's gonna look that way, and that decision making is the act of design. In terms of software, it's abstract product decisions. So, how many buttons do you want to have in an app? Who's going to use your product? How much is it going to cost? Stuff like that, expressed visually, beautifully through the interface. That's what design does. It's the functionality expressed visually. But all too often, this kind of question gets asked. What about form versus function? Where's the line between how something works and how it looks? But it turns out it's kind of a false dichotomy. It's a false, separation, because in reality, they're the same thing. And I think that architecture is a really great analogy to explain why that is. Because buildings serve practical purposes in the same way that software does. Buildings have functionality in the same way an app does. But yet, many of the buildings around us are really beautiful. And we've worked really hard to make them beautiful. Tremendous energy is put into making architecture look really good. And we do it because it feels right to us. It feels better to have beautiful surroundings. We do it because it's kind of part of who we are as humans. We appreciate beauty innately. But we do it because it makes the experience better. If you were to make a building and have it be really ugly, it could have the right floor plan and all the rooms you need, but if it looks like shit, no one's going to want to be in it. So the primary function of any object is a cultural one. When you're making something for people, it's more than what you can do with it. It's how it makes someone feel. That's the primary thing. And so design is really about the experience. This is really what matters. How people connect with a product. And so once you start focusing on that and less on other more engineering type things, you start to realize that things like what you're focusing on in a product, that perhaps saying no and perhaps leaving some features out leads to a better experience. You can spend more time focusing on some things. Things like mood, do you want your product to be intimidating or friendly? Things like that start to matter a lot. And the context, when someone uses their product, what else are they going to be doing? So when you're building something, you need to make it fit into the rest of their life, the rest of what they're doing. So let's look at some examples of good design to kind of understand this, because it's very vague when you say it like that. Here's one I love. This is something called June Oven. It's a computational oven where instead of dealing with knobs and dials, you just put food in and it figures out the rest. It comes out cooked. But if you look at the interface, you can see these buttons. You can feel the heat coming off of it. They could have just put flat buttons in there and left it, but they spend a little bit more time and they express some of the emotion of cooking. They feel right in the product. It goes beyond just functionality. It creates an experience. Another one, with iOS 15, the weather app has these cool animated backgrounds. But look a little closer. You can see the rain actually bouncing off of the cards. And this goes beyond data. The weather app now is not just about showing you the temperature and that's it. It's about making you feel the weather, feel the emotion. There's a little bit of whimsy there with the rain. So it kind of goes beyond just data. It's something greater than the sum of the parts. Here's another one. Here's iPhoto. These are effects you can use to color a photo like black and white and stuff like that. They could have just had a normal scrolling list. That would have been fine. It would have worked. The functionality would have been there. But here they've done it in a way that kind of encourages you to play around, to try something new. It feels more friendly, more exciting. And so this helps to build an emotional experience that goes beyond just editing a photo. It's something bigger than that. GarageBand's another great one. The interface is so immersive and so detailed that turns your iPad into not an electronic device, but into a guitar. And you interact with it in a whole new way. It's not just software, it's not just buttons, it's something more. And one last one. Here's the interface of the new, like, kind of dashboard for the new BMW cars. They have screens. And yeah, the data's there, the speed and the gear you're in, but it expresses some of the emotion of BMW. You can see the speed, but the kind of refined elegance. It's all there. And of course, when you zoom out, it feels right at home in the car. It feels right. So what we're gonna do today to try to capture some of that is we're all gonna make a great camera. We're gonna build the shutter screen of a camera, and we're all gonna design one for ourselves. So you can take inspiration from physical cameras. You could make it playful, or you could make it serious. You can take inspiration from digital cameras. Of course, this is the iPhone camera, but there are others too, the Snapchat. And these are, kind of more traditional, but other people have made some wacky cameras. Here's one from a Japanese company. Here's one from it's kind of like a more pro camera. It has its own mood too. So there are lots of different ways to do this. To make this thing though, we're gonna be using Figma. So everyone pull up your laptop.